So, I have a mildly controversial topic to talk about, and that is all to do with the ability for a native English teacher, such as myself, their ability to be able to speak in Chinese. Now, my background is that both of my children are half Chinese. Both of my children can speak Chinese and they can write in Chinese. In fact, my daughter recently got an A star in her Chinese GCSE here in the UK. I cannot speak Chinese and I cannot write Chinese. Maybe I can understand a little bit, but I certainly am not able to hold my own in a conversation in Chinese. Now, bearing in mind, I've been in Asia for over 20 years, I can quite happily say, and it's taken me quite a while to get to this point, I can quite happily say that that is something I am proud of. Something that I'm proud of. And I wouldn't necessarily say that if it's purely from a business perspective. But because of my personal situation at the moment, whereby I am teaching non native English speakers and I'm teaching them business English, I'm teaching them academic English, I'm teaching all different forms of English. I have to say, an inability to speak Chinese is one of my greatest assets. And please just hear me out here, just from 20 years worth of experience with this. So, going back some years, I thought it was really to my disadvantage. But as time ticked on, I began to find out that it was, in fact, greatly to my advantage. And many parents, for example, this is over the last 15 years now, many parents have said to me, the reason why we like you to teach our children is because you cannot speak Chinese. They have to speak to you in English. They have no choice but to communicate with you in English. And that pushes them outside of their comfort zone and speeds up the learning process. So that's not a comment which was just a one-off comment. This has been made to me by multiple parents over the years. That's one side of it. The other side of it is that prior to teaching, when I was in business, I used to go to China on a regular basis. And I used to have meetings with large Chinese factories, medium size and small size Chinese factories as well. And on many occasions, I used to go by myself into China and I used to have meetings with the factory owners usually. And we used to be sat around tables or in their offices discussing business, particularly in terms of developing new products. And when we were together alone in the same room, the factory owner manager was forced to speak to me in English. There was no safety net. They had to think in English. They had to speak and choose words which maybe they didn't feel were appropriate. Maybe they were words which they wouldn't normally select. But one thing is for sure, that they had to push themselves beyond their comfort zone. And that was something at the time that I valued tremendously. I could see that they were doing that. I could feel that they were doing that. And that sort of drew me towards them much more as a potential business partner. And then when we were doing business, it would strengthen the relationship because I could see that they were trying their utmost to speak to me and communicate with me in English because they wanted to grow the business and grow the relationship. Now, that was when they were alone. Now, sometimes when other people joined the meeting, the very same person would then stop communicating as much with me. For example, they would rely on other people. They would stop thinking in English. They would let somebody else finish their sentences for them. And then, because of that, they would become a little bit more distant and they wouldn't be pushing their comfort zones anymore. And the fact is, when you are absolutely forced to speak in a language which is not your own, despite all of the mistakes and despite all of the pressure and despite all of the stress of doing so, that is where the learning takes place. That is where business develops and grows. And that really is a position which I've come to learn myself over decades, over 2 decades of living and working and teaching in Asia, in Hong Kong, and in China. Now, my perspective is just very much my own perspective, and I'm sure there are many people out there which vehemently disagree with my perspective. And don't get me wrong, I think in a business situation, I think being able to speak Chinese is a tremendous asset. Don't get me wrong. I think that that very much is the case. But when it comes to teaching, if you are just purely teaching English, I really do feel that it plays to your advantage if you can't communicate in Chinese or the other person's language, because it forces them to push the boundaries, push their comfort zones, and to learn at a much, much, much faster rate. So that's my slightly controversial topic that I wanted to share with you. And I'm incredibly interested to know what everybody thinks about this particular topic. So please drop me a line, a comment in the comments below. Looking forward to reading them. Thank you very much.